Okay, so I got something a bit different today, but I can't really get my mind off of it. So apparently there's been a lot of talk recently about a potential remaster for a trilogy of games I'm fond of. I don't think anything is going to get announced soon, but just in case it does, I didn't want to lose my opportunity to weigh in. So without wasting too much more of your time, I'm going to separate these changes or additions into categories. First being what I expect to be changed or added, the second being stuff that might take a bit of work to implement but are theoretically possible, and the third are more far-fetched ideas that I really don't expect to be implemented but would be really cool. This video will be mostly focused on the first game, whereas 13.2 and Lightning Returns, I can't really think of much to change about how the games play out right without having some slight overlap with my changes to the first, with a couple exceptions, but I'll bring that up if necessary. So let's just jump into the first category. First things first, the obvious. I would expect higher resolution or reworked textures across all the games, especially Lightning Returns, and of course better optimization. It's no secret that 13 and 13.2 are notoriously hard to work with without modding, and while Lightning Returns runs better out of the box than the other two, it can't really help but stutter every once in a while. Above all else, these games looking and running as well as they possibly can would be enough for me at the end of the day. And that's about all there is for this category. Honestly, I wish there was more that I could expect from it, but given the mixed reputation of the games, I can't really expect Square to give it more than a facelift and maybe some optimization. So the next segment we'll jump into is stuff that seems plausible, but I can't see it being guaranteed. Okay, I got a bit more on this segment. We'll start with paradigm tuning. Paradigm tuning was introduced in 13.2 and it really helped combat strategy in that game. For instance, Cerberus, as an example, or a team of 3 commandos, would always target different opponents simultaneously, which might be a problem if you need to focus down a single staggered enemy. But with paradigm tuning, Cerberus Cross would allow every commando to target the highlighted enemy. This change is, of course, more directed at the first game, as the paradigm system isn't relevant to Lightning Returns, in which it's replaced with schemata. Another thing they could borrow from 13.2 is not serving a fail state upon losing the active character. Enough said on that. Anyways, with new outfits, not a whole lot to say about it. Lightning Returns had a ton of outfits, and so did 13.2, so maybe you could add a couple more for those games, but maybe some outfit variety in the original 13 wouldn't be an unwelcome addition. As for concept art, also not a whole lot to say except for having concept art of the old games and maybe some newer concept art for the remaster compiled in a menu or something would be really cool. As for hard mode, there's already a mod for that. Final Fantasy XIII's linearity was a major point of contention for many people, but it did work in the game's favor in terms of difficulty balancing. Because the game was linear, it could always account for how powerful you were at the time. This kind of blurs, of course, at Chapter 11 once you hit Grand Pulse, but I digress. Sometimes I just want to crank the difficulty up a little bit more, and I think hard mode would be a welcome addition. If you're missing data on an opponent in your data log, it's an incomplete segment forever, assuming it's from an earlier chapter than 11. I mean, there are some exceptions, of course. So I believe there should be a shop where enemy data can be sold, so I don't need to spend TP on Libra or use Librascope items every time I meet a new enemy. I mean, I don't mind playing like that, but I know others might. And if not that, maybe introduce a chapter select mode that links to your main save file. So like you go back and it levels you down to level appropriate for the area. Maybe you can keep your equipment to steamroll encounters or something, I don't know, but you could collect enemy data that you missed and it can appear in your main save file. Of course, I don't know if this is possible how I'm wording it, but I feel like it would be nice even for experiencing old chapters again in a new way. Maybe on theme with having a chapter select, there could also be a cutscene viewer. Alright, last but not least, this is stuff that I really don't expect them to implement, but would be really cool if they did. Final Fantasy XIII's combat system, especially when it's firing on all cylinders, is fantastic, and there's nothing I'd love more than a way to design my own encounters. Like locking Snow in a room with 9 Vladislaus and 3 Tiamat eliminators. Okay, that's a bit on the extreme end of things, but the point still stands that designing your own enemy encounters would be pretty sweet, especially if there was like a community sharing tab with all sorts of weird enemy encounters to try out. I was thinking about the unused 7th arc that was originally going to be like DLC or something, and maybe the team could head there to get stronger and then come across FFXIII Nemesis, and instead of being like a palette swap for Anima, it's able to draw upon the character's memories if you needed some sort of story incentive to work with that. Early on in Final Fantasy XIII, Lightning and Sazh fight a Psychon Marauder, one that is able to cast spells via mana drive technology. This of course is not nearly as potent as the real deal granted by the FFXIII, but I think if such equipment could be pilfered early on and made use of, the paradigm system could be unlocked early. At least a lesser version of it, and with a less powerful version of magic, the difference could be felt immediately as soon as you become l'Cie, and absolutely melt encounters. This could spice up the early game in a way that doesn't just boil down to single target attacks, multi-target attacks, healing via potions, and the occasional shroud. I love these games a lot, but if there's one criticism I absolutely agree with, it's that the games take far too long to start really playing to their strengths. And that's it for now. I figured I'd have more to say, but I can't really see how much more that could be added without making it a full-on remake or something. If you have any more suggestions that I didn't add, feel free to leave those in the comments. Maybe we could get a discussion going. And if it turns out a Trilogy Remaster isn't announced in the near future, you can catch me inhaling copium in the corner with my fellow Hollow Knight fans. Till then, see ya.